Hi, I'm Hannah McDonald, a student at Michigan State University, and here we have Dr. Sandra Whitehouse, a lifelong environmental advocate, marine science expert, and ocean champion for spatial planning. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Great to be here.
So my first question for you today is, you have devoted so much of your life to working on the marine environment, and from studying biology in your undergrad to working as a consultant and a policy advisor for the ocean. When did you become first involved in the ocean, and why did you spend your years studying the mysteries of the sea?
Well, that's a good question. I grew up in Newport, Rhode Island, right next to the ocean. So I was the geeky little kid with my little bucket full of crabs and snails when I was 2 or 3, and always swimming in the ocean. And then when I was a little bit older, I was the geeky kid. When I would find a dead fish or squid or something on the beach, I'd take it home, much to my mother's dismay, and get out the scissors and the tweezers and start seeing what was inside it. And I've been a lifelong swimmer, ocean swimmer. So I think I've always been really drawn to the mysteries of the ocean and had a great deal of respect for it, in large part because I was fortunate to live in close proximity and also have just, always been amazed by the many wonderful creatures that live in the ocean.
Great. So you have 2 millennial children, Molly and Alexander. How has having children their age shaped your drive to protect the ocean? And what would you tell them or anyone our age about how important the ocean is for us?
Well, I would say to them, and I have, that the ocean is absolutely essential for your future. And actually, President Obama earlier this morning talked about his children, who are a little bit younger, but really also the responsibility that we have to leave the ocean in a way that is not only healthy, but also can be sustainably used. And I think one of the other things I'd like to impart is that in the past, people have looked at ocean conservation and use of the oceans as in conflict with each other. And in reality, when we think about something like the issues of ocean acidification, the more renewable energy that we can get from the oceans, whether it's offshore wind or harnessing waves and tides for hydrokinetic energy, we can be counterbalancing putting more carbon up into the atmosphere. And so I think as long as we are doing things right in the ocean, in the right place, under the right circumstances, the ocean actually has enormous opportunity to help solve some of our problems as well as create jobs.
Yeah, that's awesome. So in the Sea of New England, many competing interests are affecting it. One of the focuses as a policy advisor to the Ocean Conservancy has been ocean planning. Some may see the ocean so vast that it requires no spatial management. Can you elaborate on the need for ocean planning?
Absolutely. I think, until relatively recently, our using the oceans has kind of been the Wild West. I mean, someone would come in and say, well, I want to do something here, or I want to do another project there, and everything was really looked at sort of individually, project by project. Now our oceans are just getting so much more crowded. We've got more shipping, more transatlantic cables, more commercial fishing, a lot more recreational uses of the ocean. And so we really need a way to look at it comprehensively, sort of through an ecosystem basis, and have the agencies working together that are working on all these different issues, and very importantly, bringing stakeholders from all of these sectors to the table so that people can start really trying to balance the competing uses. And of course, that includes people like from Ocean Conservancy that are representing the creatures that live in the ocean. Because again, I think we really do have an opportunity to use spatial planning to have the ocean be both healthy and sustainably used.
Great. So although your background is in science, you've worked a ton on policy. A key ingredient often missing from policymaking would be the dialogue that's used between scientists and policymakers. Could you talk a little bit about the challenges and the necessity of integrating science into policymaking?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's really essential. When I moved from the purely research science world about 20 years ago into the policy arena, to be candid with you, some of my peers were very disparaging about that. But I felt very strongly that it was important to bring science into more management decisions and policy decisions. I think, science has to be the underpinning of any policy decision, any new regulation, any new laws. So I think we've gotten a lot better at bringing together scientists and policymakers, but I think we always have to be advancing that. And I recommend that people in Congress, for example, have staffs that know about the science. I used to say when I was doing policy, I don't know all of the scientific answers, but I usually know who to ask. And so I think the more we can try to make sure that decisions are being made with sound science, and also that scientists feel that they are open and want to advocate for the information they have to decision makers.
That's very important.
Yes.
It seems there is a great need for protections in areas that face greater environmental stresses. And benefits of protection would be the largest when they spill over to areas that need it in the fisheries. Can you address this paradox? That there are areas that need the most protection and where people would benefit the most from are also the most difficult areas to protect.
Well, do you mean that in terms of the open ocean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, each country only has their EEZ, their exclusive economic zone, out to 200 miles. But a huge amount of the ocean is not included in those areas. I think I would answer that by saying the very foundation of any management or protection is collecting good information about those areas. There are parts of the ocean now, I like to use the size of Texas, that don't have a single monitor for measuring pH to understand what impacts ocean acidification might be having. So I think the very first step to using and understanding and protecting our open ocean spaces is to make sure that we have a good set of data that we can make those decisions on.
So this is an exciting news piece, I guess, and it's on the same topic. This administration has made great strides towards marine protected areas, and especially around the areas of the remote Pacific Islands. But up until this morning, there were no MPAs in the areas off of Northeast Atlantic. So, and it is possible that we could be, is it possible that we could be seeing more national parks created in the North Atlantic?
I'm not the president, so I can't answer that specifically. I think creating marine protected areas is an important conservation tool. We know that in these canyons, there's some amazing deep sea corals. There are, creatures that we really didn't even know existed until about 15 years ago. And so I can't presume to say how the Antiquities Act might be used in the future, but we have seen this morning that it's a tool that was used quite effectively both off of the East Coast as well as off of Hawaii to add protections to some very important habitats.
Well, at least we're hopeful for that area.
Yes.
So, as the ocean is facing serious environmental impacts that can be devastating, trying to save resources could become gloomy. Ocean optimism is something that many ocean stewards are talking about. To conclude, what are you optimistic about for the fate of our ocean?
Well, I am optimistic, and we heard this also this morning about the resilience of our oceans. We have seen out in the Bikini Islands, Philippe Cousteau was just speaking about this half an hour ago, about the recovery of the system out there. We have seen other areas where, if managed properly, areas can grow back to being healthy as long as the stresses are removed. And so I feel that the ocean is very resilient, and that we shouldn't despair, but we do need to work now to protect the ocean from various stressors.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for being
My
here,
pleasure.
and thank you for your lifelong devotion to the ocean.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for your new devotion to the ocean.
Yeah, you're welcome.